Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play StarTropics 2. In the last part, we finished off Chapter 3 in Egypt, and now we're in Chapter 4. Another time and space. Where are we now? Well, this just looks like a normal city. Huh? Where am I? Oh, here's an address. 221B Baker Street, London. Sounds familiar. We decide to look around. Subtle game. I wonder where we could be. I wonder if that's a famous address from a fictional story. Ah, good evening. Allow me to introduce myself. The name is Holmes. You mean Sherlock Holmes, the great detective? Well, yes, I do like a good mystery. In fact, I've concluded that a robbery will occur tonight at the museum. A rascal by the name of Zoda-X intends to steal a most curious stone. Zoda-X? Zoda? I've heard that name before. Oh, well then, you shall help me catch him red-handed. Meet me at the museum at the stroke of midnight, and don't be late. So by and large, this game's stages are based off real historical periods, and technically this is as well. This would be turn of the 1900s London, just about. But there's a couple of chapters where they just go straight into outright fictional stories and characters, which just feels weird and uneven with the rest of the game's worlds. Especially considering those chapters are usually some of the shorter ones in terms of what you actually do, because London's not that big. A little late to be going to the museum, isn't it? Suspicious. Come with me. We've been in London for 5 minutes and we've been arrested. Realistic to the era, I guess. Now, on my first playthrough, I thought you just had to wait around here for a while, but there's just a hidden passageway you need to use to escape. The only way you're meant to find that is just by feeling around. It's thankfully a very short, or very small cell, so there's literally not much you can do. But it is definitely a little weird, because it's the only time in the game it outright needs you to use a special passage like that, outside of right there. And we have a sleepwalker. I'm sure they'll be fine. If anything, finding your way to the museum is harder than the rest of the chapter, barring maybe the actual action stage, but that's a difference of, like, what the difficulty can be like. Aha, just in time, Mike. Come, I'll show you the stone. A tetrad! Quickly we reach for it, but suddenly... I've got the tetrad now, Mike. Zoda! That alien scum. Weak human, you'll never survive the power of the mighty Zoda-X. Zoda-X has escaped with the tetrad, oh no! The game's afoot, Mike. You give chase and I will cut him off. Alright. So before you head south towards the actual goal here, come over here to this sewer entrance to find a big heart. This is probably the one I'd say is the overall easiest to miss. If only because there's nothing indicating that that might be over there because it's just off-screen enough. Whereas every other hidden heart in the game, either you see it outright, or at least there's like, why would I be here unless there's something hidden kind of deal. Welcome to the sewers underneath London, and here we have the next new platform type, rafts. Like with the conveyor belts and the yellow platforms that spawn more when you jump on them, you actively can walk off of these into the bottomless pits, water, spikes, whatever's below them. So make sure you try to land dead center in the middle of them, otherwise you're probably going to lose a life. The London sewers, though, are a pretty straightforward dungeon. Pretty simple platforming, nothing you can really do to get trapped around in them. And the enemies are all pretty straightforward. Some of them are just literally recolors, the ones we've seen before, or reskins. I do like the slimes, though. I think they got surprisingly smooth animations. That's like double the amount of frames of most enemies in the game in terms of their movement animation. So, hey, that's cool. They're like the only enemy that really plans around the diagonal fighting technique because they move diagonally at all times, though. So be a little careful of that, I guess. This is where the game starts to get a little panel happy in some rooms, though, for doing its platforming. Which is pretty for the numbers, considering how almost the entirety of the first game went, but compared to all the early game, it does start to stand out pretty quickly. Although, actually, that's something I completely forgot to mention that you can do. Whenever there is a set of panels diagonal to each other, but there's nothing connecting them perpendicularly, you can just walk from one corner to the other without having to jump. So, diagonal movement, again, pretty good in this game when it comes to not only avoiding enemies, but genuinely just doing any kind of movement. The only tricky part there is if you're trying to attack an enemy on a panel that's diagonal to you when you can walk diagonally into it, because if you're not careful, you're probably just going to end up walking straight into the enemy, which is annoying. I want to say there's a way you can jump up to this platform from below, using either the void jump or some very precise diagonal jump. I am not good enough at the game to even consider doing that. And most it would save like a minute anyway, so eh. When it comes to doing little speedrunning tricks, the series I care to do that the most in are either very specific ones in Zelda, like getting certain heart pieces early, or just general Metroid movement is where I'm very... I want to do this as well as I can kind of deal. Other games, not so much. Now, I know I said the sewers aren't much of note when it comes to danger, and for the actual dungeon part, that's true, but if there's anything I can say is a little tricky here, it's the upcoming boss fight. Less for the boss itself, more so the room the boss is in, because it's infinitely more dangerous. Even if you can just kind of rush to the boss's health bar. We'll talk more about that in a moment, though. We also got owls here. Owls are actually something bring up something I forgot to talk about. Elevation matters a lot in this game when it comes to projectiles, because you can use it to dodge enemy attacks just by jumping over them, but enemies that are on a higher plane are just completely immune to your attacks on lower ones. So boss of this dungeon is this Zoda spawn, I guess. The boss itself doesn't really even attack you here, it just barfs out some babies. What's gonna kill you here is the timed platforms in the water. You can get like 3 to 5 hits in at a time, but I wouldn't do anything more than that if I jump to the next platform at 3, because otherwise you're just going to get drowned into the water. I have died a lot of times in this fight, just because I overestimated the amount of time I had, and for that reason alone, it's one of the more dangerous boss fights in the game. If you're quick about mashing, you can get, as you saw there, the entire boss done in one cycle. But if you want to take it a bit more slowly, just do maybe like 2 shots per jump, just about. But we're not done here in the sewers yet. That was only sewers part 1. It's time for sewers part 2. Why, that's wacky little footprints, isn't it? That's kind of adorable, actually, even. The sewers part 2 is notably longer than part 1 for one thing. But it has many more opportunities to kill you because there's a lot more times you'll need to platform near or over water on platforms you can actively fall off of. We do have Zoda spawn as actual enemies here though, and despite being the main villain's spawn in some form, they're some of the easiest enemies in the game because they just slowly move from one tile to the next in the main 4 directions. They can jump over one tile gaps, though, in the case there's a gap between one platform and the next. So be careful about that in case you're, like, staying on the other side of a small river to try and attack them, because they could just end up flying straight into your face. Now, in that first room with them there, though, we unlocked that chest and got the spiked disc weapon. Hold on to that for the boss fight, because that, alongside one other sub-weapon in the game, are 2 of the strongest weapons in the game, and that they do about 3 damage compared to our dagger's 1.5. So, yeah, hold on to those. The big thing is, once you grab them, you're also not going to want to die, because any sub-weapons you have and magic potions you have are completely deleted from your person when you die. You have to collect new ones, and thankfully the game's usually kind enough to put, like, a checkpoint in such a place where you can get maybe a sub-weapon set or a potion before a boss fight, but it's still really annoying. So make sure you make your platforming count once you have some of those. Especially, again, around these platforms you can fall off of. Ooh. The raft hitboxes are a little weird when it comes to jumping on them, if only because Mike's jump to begin with has only a weird arc, but it feels like it goes further than it should, but also it's shorter than it seems like it should be. StarTropics does a lot of things right. Its jumping arc has never been one of them, in my eyes. It does it better in this one than it did in the first game. They're still far away from any kind of, like, fluid feeling jump for this type of game. That's something I do want to bring up, and I think I brought this back up in the original games LP, but again, been 5 years. StarTropics in general was developed for an American market, and thus was only released here in the States. There was no PAL release, as far as I'm aware, and there was never a Japanese release. What's interesting about that in particular with StarTropics 2, though, is it was one of the last NES games, period. I think it was in the last 10? Let me see, can I find a list of them in order by release date? Yes, I can. I can just reorder the Wikipedia list. Let's see. Let's do, like, the last 10 games in order for the NES. Let's see, the last 10 games for the NES here in the States. TMNT Tournament Fighters, I always forget that had an NES port. Huh. Alfred Chicken, I have never heard of this. Mickey's Adventures in Numberland, Mega Man 6, I always forget that came out in 94 here in the States and not 93. I always go by that Japanese release date whenever I think about that game. This, Zoda's Revenge StarTropics 2. Mario's Time Machines NES port. The Incredible Crash Test Dummies. The Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. Disney's The Jungle Book, and famously known as the last game released for the NES, Wario's Woods. So yeah, this game, very late on the NES. The Super Nintendo at this point had been out for about a year and a half, I would say, at that point. And that's what I mean about the Raft's hitboxes being a little weird. Thankfully, there's a spike disc literally right there. This is a case where I'm imagining the main reason they made this was for the people that still had an NES that hadn't adopted a Super Nintendo at that point yet. And they do have a habit of doing that period for their consoles. Like, famously, some of the last Super Nintendo games came out into, like, 1999, 2000 in Japan, with some of the later Fire Emblems and Mega Man and Bass in Japan. N64 was one of the only consoles they really didn't do that with. If only because they probably had to make the swap to disc tech. Like, I think the last games for that came out in, like, 2001, and there were only, like, 3 or 4 of them, and I think one of them was the original Paper Mario. GameCube and Wii U started to see some crossover only because that had the backwards compatibility thing. Wii into Wii U, yeah, I saw a little bit of bleed there. And then we're on the Switch now, and who knows what'll happen when it comes to the next Nintendo console, whenever that happens. But now we're on to the boss of the sewers. Get out your spike discs, because they're going to be pretty important against Zoda-X here. Zoda-X works a little bit like Ganon from Zelda 1 in that he actively teleports all over the place and will do one of 2 attacks. He'll either do the usual Contra Spread shot that has very wide range and comes out honestly pretty quickly, or he'll set fire to spawn directly around you, 4 giant blue pillars of it. When that attack happens, you're just going to want to mash the jump button because the conveyor belt's going to try and probably carry you into at least one of the 4 tendrils of fire. But if you have enough spike discs, you can just throw it into his face, he'll transform into a weird xenomorph look-alike, and then die. The spike discs, very powerful. Now, if only they were in more dungeons, because most of the time they give you an item that's weaker than them. But still, you know, for being Zoda, kind of went down pretty early in the game, and overall, pretty easily. Especially compared to the final boss in the first game. And that's our 3rd Tetrad. I assume we're making a good amount of progress in collecting those. And we're also going to increase our health onto the 2nd row of hearts, and I won't lie, I'm always a little annoyed in one of these or a Zelda game when I have exactly 1 over in the 2nd row of hearts, if only because it feels very uneven. Well done, Mike. You are a very clever sleuth. Do you know of this stone? Blah, blah, Tetrads, blah, blah, aliens, blah, Zoda-X, blah, blah. Of course, from Zoda-X, I deduce that there must be a Zoda-Y and Z. How would you even begin to deduce that? Hurry, Mike. You are not alone in the chase with the Tetrads. Make haste. Thanks, Sherlock. I'll take it from here. And that's that chapter. It's a short one, and I kind of appreciate that after how long Chapter 3 was. We're honestly going on to one of my favorite chapters in the game, only because I feel Chapter 5 in particular hits a very good balance of the usual StarTropics kind of parody of what it's trying to be, and actually being kind of a good puzzle world with some good some good action stages. There we go. Welcome to the desert. Oh god, I'm dying in the heat. Huh? Where am I? We decide to look around. I can't be in the heat. I remember we did a family trip down to Arizona in like 2008 or 9, and one of those days it was 112 degrees outside, and at that age I couldn't handle the heat, and I was super cranky. I struck it rich, meet me at the saloon, the ginger ale's on me, blah. I guess we're in the gold rush just based off that. Cool. I love the theme here in the saloon. It's so jaunty. Welcome to the Silver Dollar Saloon. Have a shot of sarsaparilla. And if you were low on health, that would completely recover it. Howdy, partner. Have a shot of my red-eyed ginger ale. We drink the shot. Oh, God, my eyes. Dynamite. I'll say you blew my eyes up. Want me to play my greatest hit? Sure. Okay, here it goes. Eureka! I've done it. I've hit pay dirt. Rich is what I am, and now the town I will alert. There's gold in them dar hills, and it's brought me many thrills. Now it's gold that you can earn, but there's a step you must learn. It's the cactus dance. Do the cactus dance. Everybody in the desert do the cactus dance. Step light and don't you stick. Seek a special cactus and make it quick. Face the cactus if you might, and then take 2 steps left and 3 steps right. Turn left again. Okay, that's all. Then keep on walking till you hit the wall. Cactus dance, do the cactus dance. Shake up the shack with the cactus dance. The lost mine is yours if you want that too. Just blast the wall and you'll get through. Never make me somewhat sing again, game. That's a terrible decision for all involved. Yeah, boy. Charming. Now that sounds stupid, but he literally did just give us every hint we need to actually find where we need to go in this portion of the game. We just need to go talk to someone else in town to actively start the flag for us to look for the thing we're looking for. And they're in this house here. Howdy, looks like you've been through a lot. What brings you to these parts? Blah, blah, seeking tetrads, blah, traveling, blah, blah. You know, I seem to recall seeing a strange rock like your tet-tot rad. It was in a mine that has since been buried by a landslide. If you blast in the right place, you'll open the way to your tet-tot rad. Wish I could remember exactly where that was, but it's been a while. Good luck, Mike. Alright, but with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 4, we're going to, I think, finish Chapter 5 at this rate. See you guys then.